Okay, today's topic is control. A topic near and dear to my heart because I can totally relate. Yes, I am one of those control freaks in recovery. Most of us, we all enjoy being in control. And control is something that I think is instinctual. It's part of our survival of the fittest. It started with Adam and Eve, and it has moved forward into all of our lives. Now, over this last year with the pandemic, we've been inundated with situations and circumstances where we've been out of control, where we haven't had control. And so control is especially poignant at this time. Why? Why is it that people desire control? And of course, some desire it more than others. What's that all about? So for some people, control gives them a sense of power, a sense of security, and it gives them maybe a sense of peace, maybe a false sense of peace, but that's part of what it gives them. Or maybe it is that they grew up in a household where they had no control, where they were controlled by their parents or their environment or the circumstances, and they vowed that as an adult, they were not going to be in a situation like that where they were helpless and powerless. So control became a really important thing for them as they became an adult. Or maybe they were exposed to trauma or abuse of some sort, and control was something that was important because there was a lot of fear tied to being out of control or being powerless and helpless. So fear can be a driving force behind control as well. But the impact of trying to control people, circumstances, our environment, life, can be overwhelming. Why? Because sometimes when we try to control so much, to such a large extent, we push people away, we alienate people. It can destroy relationships. I see it all the time in my practice where control becomes the root problem with a couple. Because maybe both individuals are vying for control, and it creates such conflict and such turmoil that it can push each other or one another away. So control can destroy relationships. The other thing about control is it can steal our joy. It can steal our joy because maybe we're fixated on the future, on what might be or what could be, and it prevents us from living in the present. It prevents us from experiencing today. Or maybe we regret the past and we have guilt about the past, and we couldn't control the past, maybe some of the decisions and choices we made, and we can't let it go. So people who live in the future, people who live in the past, are not able to truly experience the joy of today. The past is history, the future a mystery, the present a gift. And that's where we should be focused. But people who like control have a hard time being still and staying in the present. So what can you do about this? Well, there are things you can do. For starters, what you can do is look at the kind of things that you want to control, that you feel compelled to control. And you can make two lists. A list of the things that you truly have control over, and a list of the things that you don't have control over. Now, my guess is that list of no control items is going to be larger than the control items. Certainly there are things we can do about certain situations and circumstances, but a lot of the things that cause us the most turmoil and the most distress are the things we can't control. But just being able to write it out and being able to see it on paper can help us. It can help us in understanding how much energy and time those no control items consume of us. The other thing we can work on is accepting our limits of control. Hard to do, but we can work towards accepting this is not something I have control over. This is not something I can change. I can't change other people's choices and decisions, even though I might not agree with them, even though I think they're making a mistake. I can't control them. But the more I fixate on them, the more I focus on them, the more turmoil I have in myself. Accept your limits of control and recognize that. The third thing is realizing that a lot of our control issues are related to our thinking, and our thoughts often can get us in trouble. So working on reframing your thinking, modifying your thoughts, because sometimes our thoughts can be so damaging and destructive because we're thinking things, maybe we're thinking worst case scenarios, or what if this happens, what if that happens? And that keeps us fixated on anxiety and fear and turmoil. So change the way you think. That can help. Something else that I talk about with people is this term, the paradox of control, which basically means relinquish control and you'll have more of it. It sounds counterintuitive, but I believe it's true, and it's especially true in relationships. It's especially true when we want to try to control someone else in our life. Think about this visual image. Think about having a pile of sand in the palm of your hand, and you're so afraid of losing one grain of sand that your natural inclination is to want to grip it. And once you go to grip it, the sand falls between your fingers. But if you can just relax your hand, the sand will stay still. And if you replace the sand with a person, what ends up happening is you squish them. The more you try to control them, the more they're going to resist, the more they're going to dig their heels in, and the less likely you're going to have any impact on controlling them. I often say, instead of trying to control someone, try influencing them. And in order to influence someone, you have to have a relationship with that person. The relationship has to come first before you can have any influence on anyone. And there's no guarantees with that either, of course. But working on this whole concept of letting go of control. And you could practice by letting your spouse drive the car and you sit in the passenger seat and keep your mouth shut. Yeah, hard to do for some people, I know, but can you do that on occasion? Yeah, that's something that I love driving, so I would rather be in the driver's seat. So that would be one that would be difficult for me. I've done it, but it is difficult. But ultimately, there's a lot of things in life that we don't have control over. And if you have a faith, if you have a belief in God, then can you let go and let God? Can you give it to God? Whether it's a person, a situation, a circumstance, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything, that you just, give it to God and don't do anything. But you recognize there's limits to what you can do. But you can pray, and you can learn to accept that we as humans have limited control. Now, this is a topic that I said in the beginning is near and dear to me. I actually did a TEDx talk on this topic. And if you're interested in watching it, it is on YouTube. Dr.Tony, you can find it on Rethinking Control. Rethink Control. Because personally, I think control is highly overrated, and it is an illusion. Yet we as humans seek it, desire it, crave it, and are consumed by it. Consider a different approach. That's my challenge for you. Try approaching control a little differently and see if it gives you more freedom and more peace. Until next time, Dr. Tony signing out.